The strange new home. The girl's name was Sayalari, and she had never known kindness. She came from a slave ship, a dark, cold place where names were not allowed, only numbers. Sayalari was once Subject 63 in the alien files. She was weak, bruised, and barely alive when the human found her. His name was Grant Mercer, a retired war engineer who lived alone in a quiet human settlement on the edge of known space. He found the ruined alien ship crashed in a valley while hiking. He heard coughing, faint, but real. Inside, he found her, curled up in a broken cage, her thin body shaking with fever. She was too afraid to speak. She expected him to hurt her. That's what everyone else did. But Grant just looked at her for a long time, then gently said, "Come on, kid. Let's get you out of here." He didn't speak in the cruel alien tongue. His voice was warm, calm, like a blanket. Sayalari thought. She was being moved to another prison. She was wrong. Grant brought her to his home, a small but cozy house made of stone and steel, surrounded by green trees. He placed her on a soft bed. She had never touched anything so soft before. Her people never believed in comfort. He gave her water. She drank slowly, suspiciously. Then he came back with something she had never seen, a hot bowl of soup. "Eat," he said. She didn't move. She thought it was a test. In her old world, food was used as punishment. If you took it without permission, you got beaten. But Grant just sat nearby and waited. He didn't force her. He didn't yell. Finally, she picked up the spoon and took one sip. Warm, salty, delicious. Her eyes watered without her understanding why. For the next few days, she stayed, silent. Grant didn't ask too many questions. He gave her space. He brought her clean clothes, too big for her but warm. He left books in her room, though she couldn't read the human language yet. He even gave her a small notebook and a pen. "What is this for?" she finally asked one morning in a quiet voice. "To write whatever you want," he said. "Your thoughts, your dreams." Sayalari stared at the notebook. The word dream felt strange to her. Her kind was not allowed to dream. "What do I call myself?" she asked. He smiled. "Whatever name you want." Her hands trembled as she wrote slowly on the first page. "My name is Sayalari." That night she sat by the window, staring at the stars. This place was strange, too quiet, too soft, too good. She didn't trust it. She didn't trust him. No one gives without wanting something back. Maybe he was playing a long game. Maybe he was waiting to sell her, but then she heard something. A sound. Laughter. It was his laughter. Grant was watching an old movie in the living room. A black and white comedy with humans slipping on banana peels. He was laughing like a child. She peeked from her room and saw his face. It was relaxed, happy, peaceful. She stepped back into her room and sat on the bed. Slowly, she touched the blanket. No chains, no cold floor, no alarms. She curled under the blanket, trying to stay strong. But the tears came anyway. She cried. Not because she was scared, but because no one had ever been kind to her. And it hurt in a way she couldn't explain. Grant stood outside her door quietly. He heard her. He didn't knock. He didn't say anything. He just placed a small light outside her door, a glowing orb. On it was written, "You are safe here." Sayalari looked at the glowing words. She whispered to herself, "What kind of human lives like this?" For the first time in her life, she didn't feel like a number. She felt like a person, a real person, and that was the strangest thing of all. Sayalari woke to the smell of something warm and strange. It wasn't smoke. It wasn't chemicals. It smelled good. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then her eyes opened and she remembered. The soft bed, the clean clothes, the human house. She touched the blanket. Still there. still real. When she stepped out of the room, she froze. The human, Grant, was in the kitchen. A strange white powder covered the counter. Some of it was on his nose. He was humming a song and flipping something round and golden on a hot surface. He looked over and smiled. "Morning, kid." Salary said nothing. "Ever had pancakes?" he asked. She tilted her head. "What is pancake?" Grant chuckled. "Food of the gods." He placed a plate in front of her, stacked with round, soft things dripping with honey and butter. A fork and knife sat beside the plate. Sailari stared at the tools. In her old life, only the masters used forks. Slaves ate with hands if they ate at all. She reached for the fork, then stopped. "What happens if I touch it wrong?" she asked. Grant blinked. "Nothing." She looked up at him, confused. "You won't hit me?" His face changed. His smile faded. His voice became serious. "Sailari, I will never hurt you. Ever." She didn't move for a full minute. Then slowly, she picked up the fork like it was made of glass. Her hand trembled. She cut a small piece, brought it to her mouth, and chewed. It melted on her tongue, warm, sweet, soft. Her eyes widened. She ate faster, then faster. Then suddenly, she dropped the fork and started using her hands, stuffing the pancake into her mouth like a starving animal. Grant didn't stop her. He just said, "That's more like it." She paused, embarrassed. Sticky honey dripped from her fingers. "I forgot. I'm not supposed to eat like this," she whispered. Grant took a big bite of his pancake with his hands and grinned. "Wrong," he said with his mouth full. "You eat however makes you happy. Here, we don't follow dumb rules." Salari stared at him. "Eat however you want, feel however you want." Back on the slave ship, she would have been punished for even chewing too loudly. Here, this human was telling her to enjoy food. Later that day, Grant brought out something else, a box full of snacks, colorful things in bags, chips, cookies, human treats. "Pick one," he said. Salari looked at the options and touched a shiny blue bag. He nodded. "Nice choice. Sour candy. Might make your face do funny things." She opened the bag and took a bite. Her mouth exploded with flavor. Sweet, then shockingly sour. Her eyes widened. Her face twisted. Grant laughed so hard he almost fell off the chair. She tried not to laugh. But it happened. A tiny giggle, then another. And suddenly, Sailari was laughing, truly laughing, for the first time in her life. Then she froze. Covered. Her mouth looked down. "Sorry," she whispered. "Why?" he asked. She didn't answer. That night, she sat alone in the room, still thinking about that moment. She had laughed, a real, happy laugh, but she felt ashamed, as if joy was a crime. She opened the notebook Grant gave her and slowly wrote, "I laughed today. I don't know if I'm allowed to." She stared at the words, then added another line. But it felt good. Meanwhile, in the living room, Grant scrolled through his datapad. He looked at old files. He saw the wreckage of the alien slave ship again. He remembered the burned cages, the dead children, the silence. He looked at the photo he had taken of Sailari the day he found her. Dirty, scared, broken. Then he looked toward her room and smiled. "She's healing," he whispered to himself. "She just doesn't know it yet." Sailari stood at the edge of the garden. The wind touched her skin like a whisper, warm and soft. She watched birds flying above, free, fearless. She didn't understand freedom yet, but it followed her like a shadow. Every morning, Grant asked, the same thing. "Want to come outside with me today?" And every morning, Sailari answered the same. No. Her voice was small, careful, like someone always afraid of saying the wrong thing. But Grant never asked why. He never forced her. He just smiled and said, "Maybe next time," and left the door open. always open. That afternoon, Sayalari sat near the window with her notebook in her lap. She had drawn the same bird 3 times. Its wings always looked wrong. She sighed and looked outside. Grant was sitting by a tree, his back resting against the trunk. The sun lit his face, and he looked peaceful. In his hand was a strange object, round, metallic, and quiet. Sayalari stepped out, silent as a whisper. She walked down the steps barefoot. The grass tickled her toes. Each step felt dangerous, but no one yelled. No one stopped her. And when she reached him, Grant didn't act surprised. He just handed her the object. "What is it?" she asked. "Harmonica," he said. "Try it." She hesitated. "What if I fail?" He smiled. "Then try again." She placed it on her lips, blew air into it. Too hard. A screeching noise came out. She gasped and handed it back quickly. "I broke it." Grant laughed. "You didn't break it, that's how learning sounds." They sat together as the wind blew leaves around them. Sayalari looked at him carefully. "Why, don't you get angry?" she asked. Grant blinked. "Why would I be angry?" In my world, making mistakes had meant pain. He was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Well, this isn't your world anymore." The next morning, Sayalari found something waiting for her on the table. A small cup of blue tea. Next to it, a note. "Let's try something new today." Her hands shook slightly as she picked it up. When Grant entered, she looked at him and whispered, "I'm not ready." He nodded. "Okay." She frowned. "That's it? You don't have to do anything you don't want to. Here you can. Say no. And no means no." Sayalari looked down. Her whole life the word no had no meaning. Now, it had power. She walked away, unsure of what to feel. Later that evening, she sat alone in the hallway. And suddenly, she felt something. A new feeling. Control. She didn't have to go out. She didn't have to obey. Her choice mattered. But that night the wind grew stronger. The trees howled. Thunder rolled far in the sky, and the sound brought back memories of the slave ship, of storms in chains, of cold metal rooms and no escape. She couldn't sleep. So she stood up, barefoot, and walked outside into the rain. She walked to the same tree, and there he was. Grant was waiting, umbrella in hand, one chair beside him. Dry, warm, ready, I thought. "You said I could say no," she said. He smiled. "You did. I just stayed, in case you said yes later." She sat beside him. The rain fell around them, but not on them. They didn't speak. They just listened to the storm. After a while, she whispered, "It's okay to say no here." Then she looked at him. "But it's also safe to say yes." Grant nodded slowly. "You're getting it now." That night, Sayalari wrote in her notebook, "Today I said no, and I was heard. Then I said yes, and someone waited for me." She underlined the word, waited. No one had ever done that before. Sayalari stood in front of the mirror holding a paintbrush. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't a tool for labor. It was just a paintbrush. She stared at it for a long time, then at her reflection. She barely recognized the girl in the mirror anymore. 3 weeks had passed since she came to Grant's house. She had not been locked, not shouted at, not touched without asking. She had learned something strange about humans. They believed in expression, not control, not fear, but feelings. It started when Grant handed her a strange object one morning. "What is it?" She asked. "A music player," he replied. "You press here to listen." Sayalari touched the button, and music began to play. Not alien drums or military horns, but soft, flowing sound. Piano, strings, human voices. Some were sad, some were hopeful, some made her heart feel strange. "What is the purpose of this?" she asked. "None," Grant said, sipping coffee. "It's just music." She couldn't believe it. Something that exists just to be beautiful? That wasn't allowed in her old world. The next day he gave her a notebook, this one filled with blank pages and colored pencils. "No rules," he said. "Draw what you feel." She looked confused. "What should I copy?" "Nothing," he said. "Create." She stared at the first page for 2 hours, then, slowly, she began to draw. Not ships, not scars, but stars. Wings, eyes filled with light, a version of herself, not broken. At first she felt shame. She wasn't trained to make art. She wasn't built to imagine. But Grant kept saying the same thing. Art is freedom. There's no wrong answer. He taught her to cook eggs. The first batch was burnt. The second batch exploded in the pan. The third one? Edible. He smiled and said, "Perfect." She looked at him like he was crazy. "But it's still wrong." He tapped her forehead gently. "Wrong is how you learn. No one starts perfect." She felt something stir inside her. Strange kind of joy. Every day was like a new lesson, but not in war or slavery, in life. How to laugh without fear. How to sit in silence and not expect pain. How to speak without permission, and one day, how to dance. It was raining again. Grant stood, barefoot in the garden, his old music player hanging from his belt playing a soft human melody. "Come," he said, holding out his hand. "I don't know how," she whispered. "Neither do I," he grinned. So they danced badly, but freely. They spun and laughed and slipped in the mud. She didn't even care that she fell. Because when she looked up, she saw him smiling, not mocking, not judging, just happy. For her. That night she asked him, "Why are you teaching me all this?" Grant looked up from his book. "Because someone once taught me." "Who?" He paused. "My wife. She passed away long ago. But she believed everyone deserves a second chance, even a broken man like me." Sayalari looked at him differently that night. He wasn't saving her just to be kind, he was healing himself too. Through her. Later she wrote in her notebook, "Humans are not soft. They are not weak. They are strong enough to feel, and still be kind." The next morning, Grant handed her something small, a pendant with a smooth blue stone. She held it like it was sacred. "It belonged to my wife," he said. "She would have liked you." Sailari stared at it for a long time. Then slowly she placed it around her neck. "I will protect it," she whispered. And for the first time she didn't feel like a rescued slave. She felt like a student of life. And her teacher was a broken human who knew how to rebuild others. The glass hit the floor. It shattered into tiny pieces that sparkled under the kitchen light like broken stars. Sailari froze. Her chest tightened. Her hands shook. She had dropped the cup. She had made a mistake. She had failed. Her first thought wasn't to say sorry. Her first thought was to run. So she did. She dashed down the hallway, heart pounding like a war drum. She slid under the bed in the guest room, the place that had slowly begun to feel like her home. Not anymore. Now it was just a hiding place. She curled up, covered her mouth, and waited. For the shouting, for the strike, for the punishment. That's what always came after a mistake. But the shouting never came. The footsteps were soft, slow, patient. Then silence, and then a warm voice. "Sailari?" She didn't answer. She held her breath. But Grant's voice didn't get louder. It didn't get angry. It just stayed calm. "I know you're scared," he said, sitting on the floor outside the bed. "But it's just a glass." Sailari wanted to believe him, but her body was shaking from memories that never left her. Her arms still remembered the cuffs. Her back still remembered the lashes. Even though she was safe now, her soul hadn't caught up. She stayed under the bed. Long minutes passed, then something slid in front of her, a hand, not grabbing her, just waiting, open. Still, steady. After a long time, she reached out and touched it. It didn't pull her. It didn't trap her. It just held her. And suddenly, her breathing broke. Tears spilled down her cheeks. She wasn't crying softly. She was sobbing, loud, messy, and raw, like a dam breaking after years of silence. Grant pulled her into a gentle hug and whispered only 3 words. "You are safe." He brought her out of the room and sat her down. Then, without another word, he handed her a broom. She blinked. "What is this for?" "To help clean up the mess," he said. She looked down. "I thought you would punish me." Grant sighed. "No, Sayalari. Here, we clean up mistakes. Not people." She swept slowly, still in shock. No slap. No shouting. Just correction. Not cruelty. She looked at the last shard of glass and said, "It sparkles, even when it's broken." Grant nodded. "So do you." Later, she asked him, "What happens when you make a mistake?" He chuckled. "I made thousands, still do." "What did they do to you?" "Nothing," he said. "I learned, moved forward, and tried again." She stared at him. That idea was still hard to believe. That failure didn't mean you stopped being a person. The next morning, she placed something on the table. It was a drawing of a broken glass, but the pieces were glowing like diamonds, floating in the air. She had written one sentence underneath. "Mistakes are not monsters. They are mirrors." Grant looked at the drawing, then looked at her. "I think you're ready," he said. "For what?" "For life. Real life." She tilted her head. "I thought this already was life." He smiled. This was healing. Now comes the next step. Sayalari didn't know what that meant yet, but for the first time, she wasn't afraid to find out. That night she sat by the window again, but this time she wasn't crying. She was writing, page after page in her notebook, not about pain, but about growth, about mistakes, about becoming more than what the galaxy told her she was. She wrote, "Today I broke something, and nobody broke me." The calm morning didn't last. A strange sound filled the sky. Not thunder, not wind, a hum, a pulse, a presence. Sayalari stepped into the garden with Grant. Above them, a sleek silver ship hovered like a dark bird. Alien symbols flashed along its side. Symbols Sayalari recognized. Her blood turned cold. "That's a noble family crest," she whispered. Grant's jaw tightened. "Someone came looking for you." The ship landed on the far edge of the field. It didn't touch the ground. It hovered. From its open hatch, 2 tall armored figures stepped out. Between them, a creature in silk robes walked forward with long, slow strides. His face was smooth, elegant, and cruel. Virex Maltan, a royal handler. Sayalari's legs went weak. She had seen him before, long ago. He was the one who catalogued her. When she was brought to the breeding ship, he didn't even see her as a person, just a number, just property. Virex stopped a few feet away and gave a mocking bow. "Human," he said in a soft voice. "You have something that belongs to the royal house." Grant stepped forward, calm but firm. "She belongs to no one." Virex smiled. "Oh, but you misunderstand. That girl is registered in our records as biological material. She was bred for service, raised for purchase, and marked as a loss when her ship went down." He looked at Sayalari with empty eyes. "She is not free." Sayalari stood frozen behind Grant, hands trembling. Her heart was screaming, but she didn't speak. Not yet. Virex continued, "You are interfering with royal affairs. The law of the Interstellar Compact allows for property retrieval. If you resist, you risk war." Grant didn't flinch. He simply said, "You call her property. I call her family." Virex's smile faded. Then, suddenly, Sailari stepped forward. Grant tried to stop her, but she moved past him slowly. Her voice was quiet but firm. "I'm not going back." Virex raised a brow. "You have no choice." She met his gaze. "Yes, I do." For a second he was silent. Then he spoke like a knife. "Do you really think the humans will keep you? You are a designed creature, a failed product. You were made to serve, not speak." Her eyes watered, but she didn't break. She took off the pendant Grant had given her, the blue stone from his wife, and held it up. "This belonged to someone who believed in second chances. That belief saved me." She looked at Virex with fire in her eyes. "You don't scare me anymore." Suddenly, the guards raised their weapons. Grant pulled Sailari back behind him. "Try anything," he said coldly, "and I promise, your ship won't leave orbit." Behind his back, the auto turrets on his property activated. 4 glowing red dots locked onto the alien guards. The air turned heavy with tension. Virex narrowed his eyes. "This isn't over." He turned and walked back to the ship. Before leaving, he said something that made Sailari's blood freeze. "The galaxy will come knocking, and when it does, your human will not be enough to save you." The ship rose and vanished into the clouds. Only silence remained. Grant turned to Sailari. She was shaking, but she didn't cry. She just whispered, "They're going to come back." He nodded. "Yes, probably." She looked up at him. "Then why don't you send me away? You're in danger because of me." Grant smiled sadly. "I was in danger long before you. But now, I finally have a reason worth fighting for." That night the wind felt colder, the stars felt closer, and Sailari didn't write in her notebook. She was too busy sharpening her strength, because she now understood the past wouldn't stop chasing her. But this time, she wouldn't run. The night before she left, Sailari stood barefoot in the grass. The stars stretched above her like scattered jewels, so different from the view through a slave ship's tiny window. Behind her, the house glowed softly. Her drawings hung on the wall now. Her name was carved on the wooden beam near the front door, right below Grant's. 2 names, 1 home. But now everything was about to change. She knew they would return. The noble family didn't like to lose what they claimed as property. And after that last visit from Virex, Grant had spent hours working in his underground bunker, reinforcing the shields, updating the defense AI, preparing. But he never once asked her to hide. He only ever said, "If they come, we stand together." But that wasn't why she was leaving. She was to make a stand of her own. Grant sat at the workbench when she entered. "I've been thinking," she said, voice steady. He looked up. "I can't keep hiding in your shadow. I need to speak. Out there. I need them to see me, not you." Grant studied her eyes. The fear was gone. What remained was fire. He leaned back in his chair. "So, what's the plan?" Sailari took a deep breath. "I'm going to the Galactic Forum. I'll speak. As a witness, as a survivor. I want the universe to know that I am not for sale." Grant didn't argue. He didn't tell her it was dangerous. He just stood, walked to the shelf, and handed her a small metallic ring. "What's this?" "It records everything you see and hear. Evidence in your own voice." She held it like treasure, and for the first time she wasn't afraid to speak. 5 days later, Galactic Forum. The forum was massive, built into a moon that orbited a gas giant. Beings of every race walked the glowing halls, wearing their finest robes and coldest faces. Sailari walked between them alone. Some whispered, some stared, some looked away. She wore no chains, no silk, just simple clothes and a necklace with a blue stone. A child's voice behind her asked, "Who is she?" And the mother whispered, "An escaped pet." She didn't flinch. She kept walking. The main chamber opened before her, a giant hall with 1,000 glowing seats for diplomats, royals, and commanders. At the center was the speaker's platform, and above it, a floating screen. Case 4489, claim, dispute, property or person. She stepped forward. Everyone turned. The council's head, a massive insectoid known as Prime Watcher Velen, spoke. "State your name and purpose," her voice echoed. "My name is Sayalari." Murmurs. Confusion. "I am here to tell you that I'm not a number, not a product, not a pet, I am a person." The silence after her words felt heavy. Virex stood at his podium nearby, eyes cold. She was grown in a lab. She was never born naturally. She exists because we allowed it. Her place is not here. Sayalari stepped closer. "I was grown in a lab, yes. You designed me to obey. But something happened you didn't expect." Her hands clenched the edge of the platform. "I was rescued by a human." She activated the ring. Images and sound filled the chamber. Her first day in Grant's home. Her notebook. Her tears. Her laugh when she tasted sour candy. Her voice whispering, "I don't know who I am." Her shout, "I'm not going back." And, finally, Grant's voice, "She's family now." The chamber fell silent again. Then one voice, soft from a reptilian counselor, asked, "Do you believe yourself equal to any citizen?" Sayalari lifted her chin. "No." Gasps. Then she continued, "I believe I'm not just equal. I believe I'm something new. A soul you tried to silence, but who found her voice." Virex slammed his hand down. "This is a waste of time. She's a tool gone rogue," another counselor asked. "Would you harm her if we gave her back to you?" Virex didn't answer, and his silence said everything. The votes began, one by one. Beings from across the stars made their decision. When the last light turned green, the chamber lit up with a final verdict. Sayalari is free. She stood there, shaking, not from fear but from something heavier, relief, justice, victory. As she left the chamber, someone approached her. A small alien girl, thin, scared. "Are you really like me?" the girl asked. Sayalari knelt down. "I was." The girl's voice cracked. "What happens now?" Sayalari smiled gently. "Now, you get to choose who you are." 1 week later, back on Earth, Grant was sitting on the porch when he saw the ship land. The door opened. Sayalari stepped out, taller somehow, not in body, but in presence. He smiled. "Back so soon?" She walked up the path and hugged him without a word. Then she whispered, "They heard me." Later, she stood on the hill behind the house. More ships landed, small transports, and from them came others like her, boys, girls, teenagers, quiet, scared, just like she had been. They were here to stay. Grant had made space. Sayalari would make them strong. She stood before them and spoke. "I once thought silence was survival. That fear was normal, that kindness was a lie." She touched the pendant on her neck. "Then a human taught me to feel, to laugh, to fail, and rise again." She paused. "I'm not a child of a royal family. I'm not a creation in a lab. I'm a student of humanity, and today you are too." That night, as the wind moved through the trees and the stars blinked above, Sayalari cried again. Not from pain, not from fear, but from freedom. And they were the most beautiful tears she had ever known.